Welcome to the Deep Dive. We cut through the noise to bring you, well, the really vital insights from some of the world's most compelling stories. Today, we're embarking on a pretty fascinating deep dive into the recent unfiltered thoughts of let's face it, a true global icon. But this isn't just about football, It's really a masterclass in things like resilience, loyalty, leadership, and the harsh realities, sometimes surprising ones, of life at the absolute pinnacle of global sport. Our source. It's a genuinely candid interview with one of the most recognizable athletes on the planet. Our mission today is to sort of extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from this conversation, offering you a shortcut, if you like, to understanding the complex world of elite sports right through his eyes.
Yeah, and what's really remarkable about this source material is how it pulls back the curtain. You get to see the human side, behind the headlines. We're going to explore some deeply personal tragedies, his often surprising and very blunt takes on everything from club management to the mentality of, well, a whole new generation, and what his unique perspective might mean for the future of football itself. It's quite something.
Okay, let's dive right in then. Let's unpack his whirlwind return to Old Trafford. Because it wasn't quite as straightforward as it seems, was it? How close was Cristiano Ronaldo to joining Manchester City? And, what really tipped the balance in the end?
Oh, incredibly close. I mean, almost a done deal, actually. Pep Guardiola himself admitted City tried hard to get him, but Ronaldo's decision, in his own words, it was a conscience decision, really guided by the heart, his history with United. And he was explicit that Sir Alex Ferguson played an absolutely pivotal role. He personally told him, it's impossible for you to come to Manchester City. Those words from Fergie. Well, that seems to have sealed it.
And what a comeback it felt like initially. You remember that dream return game against Newcastle, 2 goals, 4-1 win, Sir Alex and his mother in the stands, both looking, visibly emotional. And the impact off the pitch was just staggering. Shattered the all-time record for shirt sales in 24 hours, beat Messi at PSG even. And that announcement tweet from United, most liked in Twitter history. It really did feel like a fairy tale start.
It absolutely did. And, it connects to his whole mindset about records. He famously said, I don't follow the records follow me. What's even wilder is that apparently nobody, not even Ronaldo himself, saw the United move coming. It all just unfolded in 72 hours, a real last-minute plot twist.
Right. So here's where it gets really eye-opening.
Yeah.
After 13 years away, winning absolutely everything at Real Madrid and Juventus, what did he actually find when he walked back into Manchester United?
Well, he was surprised, and not in a good way, according to him. He described this sort of severe lack of progress at the club. He expected cutting-edge tech, modern infrastructure, but he found everything was the same. And he gave these really specific, almost jarring examples. The swimming pool, the jacuzzi, the gym, even the kitchen and the chefs, apparently unchanged since 2009.
Wow. That's a pretty damning assessment of a global giant like United. Do you think his perspective here is it entirely objective, or does it maybe highlight a broader issue, the danger of resting on your laurels?
I think it absolutely does touch on that. In his view, United's progress was effectively zero, nothing, especially compared to Real Madrid and Juventus. He felt those clubs followed the world, constantly updating training, nutrition, recovery methods. He believed a club of United's, quote, dimension should be right at the top of the tree, but instead, he felt they were lagging quite significantly behind. Snark warning, isn't it? About complacency setting in, even in huge, successful organizations.
And he also pointed out, didn't he, that while Sir Alex Ferguson obviously left a huge gap, he also mentioned David Gill leaving, the former president, and it's the whole structure around Ferguson, that those crucial elements were gone too.
Exactly. It wasn't just about Sir Alex retiring. The whole ecosystem had changed.
So if that's the internal picture, what did that mean for the managers who came after Sir Alex? And maybe even for the young talent at the club?
Well, he was particularly critical of Ralph Rangnick, stating nobody really understood why he was brought in as a sport director when, in Ronaldo's eyes, he was not even a coach. He actually confessed he never saw him as a boss, found his attempts to, revolutionize football a bit misguided, especially given Ronaldo's own experience working under, Zidane, Mourinho, Ancelotti, top coaches. Interestingly, though, he was much more positive about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, called him a top person, said he did a good job, but just maybe needed more time.
Okay, and then moving into the Ten Hag era, it sounds like Ronaldo perceived a real lack of respect, or disrespect, as he put it. He talked about that Tottenham game incident. Being asked to play for only 3 minutes, he found that deliberately provoked. And then he noted Ten Hag's later excuses for not playing him against City, claiming too much respect, which just didn't square with the Spurs situation, did it?
No, the contrast was sharp, and the fallout from that Spurs game was huge for him. He said he regretted leaving the stadium early, yes, but crucially not his decision not to come on. He felt it was a strategy from the club to basically force him out. He used the word betrayed, found the 3-day suspension humiliating, especially how the club, as he put it, decided to fuel the press or make fire for the press. He even shared that story about his son asking, Daddy, you're not going to the game. How can they punish you if you're the best player in the world?
Yeah.
It's interesting that feeling of betrayal mixed with admitting regret suggests it was pretty complex for him.
Yeah, definitely complex.
Now, shifting gears slightly, he gave a pretty candid assessment of the younger player's mentality. What did he observe there? And what might that tell us about maybe generational shifts in these high-pressure environments?
He basically summarized it by saying younger players live in a different era. They're not the same as his generation. He suggested they don't suffer the same way, maybe implying they haven't faced the same adversity, and perhaps they don't care quite as much about the hard graft. He called it a shame that they don't at least copy what you did, especially when they have the best examples in front of their eyes. And he was pretty blunt, believing this generation just won't have the same longevity in the game.
It really does raise a big question for leaders everywhere, doesn't it? How do you instill that grit, that discipline, that long-term view in a generation with maybe different experiences and different motivators?
So given that perspective, how did he say he approached mentorship in that kind of environment? What was his preferred method?
He explained he prefers to lead by example. His feeling was that direct advice often doesn't stick with younger players. They might listen to one thing and in 2 minutes they already forgot. He did single out one player, though, Diogo Dalot, called him very, very professional and someone he believes will have longevity in football. So he clearly saw potential there.
But it wasn't all just football drama, was it? He also opened up about a truly, truly difficult personal chapter, something most people probably didn't know the full story of.
No, absolutely. He recounted losing his baby son, called it the worst moment that I passed through my life since my father died. Just devastating. And he described those incredibly conflicting emotions, never feeling happy and sad in the same moment because his daughter, Bella, was born at the same time. It's just a powerful reminder of the human struggles that go on, even for these global superstars.
How did he say they navigated that immense grief as a family, particularly with his other children?
He shared how he and Georgina explained it. He cried with his oldest son, Cristiano Jr. For the younger ones, they explained that Angel, their son's name, went to heaven, which led to these incredibly poignant moments, apparently, where the kids would point to the sky saying, "Daddy, I did this for Angel." He actually credited this whole terrible experience with making him more father, more friendly.
And he also talked about the impact on his relationship with Georgina, didn't he? How it brought them closer, and how she encouraged him to keep playing, thinking it might help him forget a little bit the situation.
Yeah, and there was another surprising and quite upsetting revelation tied to his family. He said he missed preseason because baby Bella was actually in the hospital for a week with bronchitis. And he expressed real hurt that he felt the Manchester United management didn't believe his reasons, emphasized he'd never negotiate anything beyond his family's health. That clearly cut deep.
And beyond the personal pain, what's also striking is how he described the public reaction to his loss.
He called it an extraordinary reaction from football fans, said he never, ever expected that. He specifically mentioned the Liverpool fans singing "You'll Never Walk Alone" in the 7th minute of their next game, a really powerful gesture across rivalries. And his complete surprise at receiving a personal letter from the Queen family offering condolences. He expressed real respect and gratitude for the English community for their kindness then, and he even connected his later tribute post when the Queen passed away back to that compassion they showed him.
Okay, moving beyond the immediate drama at United, he also weighed in on the wider football world, particularly his often difficult relationship with the media and the way the game is changing.
Yeah, he talked about his perception of football becoming more of a business, where players are sometimes, in his words, treated like a piece of meat. He feels he's often become the black sheep, the one who always gets blamed. And he was brutally honest about the press, called them garbage, accused them of lying 90% of the time, often driven by jealousy, he thinks. He openly admitted he just avoids reading it because, as he put it, they try to make me feel bad. It gives you a real sense of the psychological pressure, doesn't it?
Definitely. And then there's just his sheer level of fame. The most followed human being on Instagram. 495 million followers at that time. That's just mind-boggling.
He acknowledged his pride in that, put it down partly to being charismatic and, well, good-looking. He used this really unique phrase, didn't he? Likening himself to an appetitive fruit that people just want to bite into. A very memorable way of describing his global appeal. But he also made it clear he doesn't waste time for the people who don't like me.
What about criticism from former teammates, though? Like Rooney or Neville? That must land differently, surely.
He admitted his surprise at that, especially since he mentioned Rooney had actually been to his house just 6 months before criticizing him. He drew a line, called them colleagues, pointedly not friends, and he felt they perhaps take advantage of his name to get attention for themselves. Said it doesn't hurt him or make him sleep badly, but he did find it disappointing. And he contrasted that with the loyalty he felt from Rio Ferdinand and Roy Keane, who he believes understand how players think.
Right. And finally, on the topic of decisions, he addressed that huge financial one, the Saudi offer.
Yes, he confirmed it. An astonishing offer, $350 million for 2 seasons, which he turned down at that time. And his explanation was that it underscored he's not just about the money. He was still driven by wanting to keep playing at the highest level, specifically the Champions League, and wanting to keep breaking records. It really highlighted that competitive fire was still burning incredibly strongly, perhaps even more than the financial lure at that specific moment.
So as we sort of wrap up this deep dive, where did Cristiano Ronaldo at that stage see his future, both, on the pitch and maybe beyond?
Well, he talked about his ambition to play for 2 years more, 3 years more maximum, aiming to finish with 40. He was adamant he was as fit as you've ever been. And he emphasized this unique ability he feels he has to adapt his game to his age. Claimed, nobody in this game has this brain that adapts with his age. It's a fascinating insight into athletic longevity, or at least his perception of it.
And the World Cup must have been huge on his horizon then.
Definitely. He noted it was his 5th and very likely his last one. He sounded very optimistic about Portugal's chances, even if he didn't see them as outright favorites. And he shared that ultimate dream scenario, didn't he? Scoring a hat-trick in the World Cup final against Messi's Argentina to win it all, after which he said he would retire 100%. Quite the fantasy finish.
And speaking of Messi, he did touch on their long-standing, much-discussed rivalry or relationship.
Yeah, he described it as a great relationship, acknowledged Messi as an amazing player, called him magic, top as a person. He reflected on how they'd shared the stage for 16 years at the absolute peak. And while he clarified they aren't friends in the sense of, calling each other up or visiting each other's houses, there's clearly deep professional respect there. He even said he'd be open to having dinner with Messi someday, which would be quite the event.
Absolutely. Looking beyond playing, though, what kind of legacy did he say he wants to leave?
He revealed this desire to educate people, help them maintain longevity, not just in sport, but to survive life, focusing particularly on resilience, mental strength. He clearly sees himself as a role model in that sense. Mentioned wanting to write a book, but not a typical autobiography, more something to help people, teach them how to win. So his ambitions definitely extend far beyond just the football pitch.
And finally, after all that had happened, what was his parting message specifically to the Manchester United fans?
He conveyed it was hard for me to say that I will not be back to Manchester United, but that the fans will be always in my heart. That connection seemed important to him, but he reiterated his belief that the club's infrastructure is not good and it should change, even going so far as to suggest they might need to destroy it to rebuild, and then adding if that rebuilding process starts with him leaving, well, it's not a problem. A very blunt, almost challenging final thought for the club.
Wow. What an extraordinary journey into the mind of, well, a true global icon. We've definitely seen the side of Cristiano Ronaldo that you rarely get to see publicly. His profound personal heartbreak, his very strategic, sometimes brutally honest thinking about the game, and that just unwavering pursuit of excellence, even when he's clearly feeling profound disappointment.
It absolutely humanizes him, doesn't it? It takes him off that pedestal a bit. And it really raises a big question for all of us, I think. In a world where we idolize heroes, how do we reconcile their very real, very human struggles and criticisms with these larger-than-life personas we create? What does it actually mean to be a legend? And how do their personal truths, when they come out like this, reshape how we understand their public image?
Yeah, that's a great point. This deep dive really reveals the immense pressure, the intense scrutiny that comes with being right at the very top, and that incredibly complex interplay between personal values, professional ambition, and, well, public perception. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. We really hope you've gained some new insights and maybe a fresh perspective on what it takes and what it means to live life at the absolute pinnacle of global sport.